Welcome to part 2 of this recording, where we deal with the options the government has, as this crisis in Kenya unfolds, and we read on from this article in the East African by constitutional lawyer Wachira Maina. Okay, let's continue. Unfortunately, Uhuru Kenyatta has very few options now, and none are attractive. This has exposed his soft underbelly, serving up a lame duck second term, even if he's able to hold on to the end of his presidency. That has 3 implications. Each one of them you will find very unsettling. 1. Looking at these numbers, and that's the numbers of the recently concluded presidential era, any NASA leader Kenyatta reaches out to with promises of goodies so as to outflank Odinga will be coy. Is it worthwhile to accept a position in an administration at a time when that seems so obviously like a kiss of death? 2. That Kenyatta is serving his last term will fray his own support within Jubilee, a party teeming with young politicians with political gifts to burn and years of political life ahead. If they see Kenyatta as a liability, as these numbers say that he is, their support will be mostly equivocal and low-key, all geared to wait out Kenyatta's 5 years as they consolidate the experience. 3. Unable to co-opt the opposition, Kenyatta will be thrown back to his allies, principally Ruto, on whom he must increasingly rely on to get his measures through parliament. Ruto in turn will have 2 concerns. First, a legitimate worry, in the wake of this election, that he cannot rely on Kenyatta to deliver the Kikuyu bloc. And second, a realization that though another Kikuyu Kalenjin alliance remains numerically attractive, fronting it in 2022 will be fatally toxic in terms of ethnic relations in Kenya. At a minimum, Ruto must see that any winning future coalition must reach beyond Mount Kenya and the central highlands of the Rift Valley. Now, if I can interrupt, for those who really think very deeply about politics, the sum total of what I've just read means that the man to watch right now is not even the president. The man to watch is William Samoei Ruto. That is where action will be. Okay? Because of the reasons we have just read. Okay? He's looking to the futures of his political career. Okay? Let's read on. Kenyatta has just thrown his deputy a curveball. Ruto must try to keep his current coalition in power even as he cobbles up a wider coalition that can win in 2022. Okay? Curveball Wakenya wengi wajui hiyo. Curveball is, I think, from American football. The ball comes spinning and it's curving dangerously. Yani amerushiwa ball ambaye ni, like if you're playing soccer, he has been thrown a pass which is very difficult to handle. Unajua ukipewa through pass, it's just supposed to be through pass. It's in front of your legs and you can shoot and score. Yeah, this pass he has been given, iko complicated. Anyway, let's read on. This dual play is both a boon and a bane from where Kenyatta sits. In keeping the current coalition together, Ruto will be helping keep Kenyatta in power. But whatever he does to build a new coalition for 2022 will undermine him. Now, this next paragraph is very controversial. I believe it's 100% true. But here is where, hapa ndo maneno iko. Yeah? Let's read. And then there are Kenyatta's political business allies. These oligarchs who finance his politics and the real power behind the throne. Many will already have been thinking ahead, scouting for politicians to fund for 2022 as Kenyatta's second term ends. This election result must have shocked them. Some will recalculate their risks, some may even defect, if not to the opposition, then to the heir apparent Ruto, especially if the crisis deepens. In a way, this was inevitable. In 5 years, Kenyatta has done everything to undermine institutions and empower the contractor elite, the oligarchs, around him. That he must soon find that very elite fickle in their support is his own doing. 2,000 years ago, Aristotle persistently said that democracy, together with its institutions, was safer than oligarchy, because oligarchies suffer a double risk. First, oligarchs often fall out with each other, and second, and more usually, they invariably fall out with the people. A Kenyatta who cannot deliver the goods is ripe for betrayal by his allies. Thus abandoned, he will be further weakened if the opposition confronts him with violent upheavals. Some will think that Kenyatta's now fragile coalition can survive the coming turbulence. Perhaps that is so, but it seems unlikely. Part of the problem is that the administration is facing deeper problems. that will feed Kenyatta's political nightmares. The economy is not doing well. The political uncertainty has had an effect on it, to be sure, but then so has the weather, with its knock-on effect on food production. Our growing debt and its onerous interest repayments will eventually bite. Given the administration's appetite for expensive debt, I fear the costly loans are lined up. There is more trouble to come. Juggling a tanking economy with the vociferous politics would tax a leader with better political skills and a more equable temper than Kenyatta, who started out desperate to be liked in 2013 and now seems keener to be feared. Without political resources to draw down and short of economic performance to brag about, he will at least in the short run turn to repression, becoming a more authoritarian as the double crisis bites. Now, unfortunately, the authoritarian option is never a good one. First, autocracy invariably solves all political conflicts violently. Second, its success depends on the coherence of the ruling elite. Let's explore each of these two problems. Using violence to solve political problems is both inefficient and unpredictable. It is inefficient because it means significant investments in surveillance and control. It is unpredictable because what the state can do, the public can do too. The dramatic collapse of the Romanian dictator Nicolae Ceausescu in December 1989 is a case in point. The dictator had run a vicious and violent regime. In the face of economic crisis, he imposed a severe austerity program that eventually provoked riots in the town of Timisoara, Romania's third largest city and a key economic and cultural center. Ceausescu called for a rally in Bucharest, the capital city, intending to condemn the protesters and check the spread of discontent. The crowd grew unruly and demanded that the dictator step down. Ceausescu unleashed his dreaded security forces. But in the week that followed, protests flared up across the country. At that point, the security forces balked at shooting at the unarmed public, and Ceausescu then fled Bucharest with his wife, Deputy Prime Minister Elena Ceausescu, on December 22nd, 1989. 3 days later, he was arrested, summarily tried and executed on Christmas Day. The rapid collapse of longtime Tunisian dictator Zine El Abidine Ben Ali in January 2011, hot on the heels of violent protests triggered by the self-immolation of Mohamed Bouazizi, a hawker, on December 17, 2010, following economic and political crisis, underlines the same lesson. That brings the second point into play, the coherence of the ruling elite. All regimes must strike some bargain with their supporters, implicitly or explicitly. Repression, as happened in Romania and Tunisia, forces regime supporters to recalculate the actual risk of losing power. Whether repression succeeds over time also depends on the cooperation of the security forces. When there's an economic crisis such as the one we seem headed into, and the country is sharply and deeply divided as Kenya was and is now more so, there is a dual risk. The economic crisis erodes the support of the political elite, and the political divisions fragment the security forces into ethnic militia. This means that though Kenyatta may be tempted by the authoritarian option, it is a dangerous and fickle mistress that he will be courting. Given this, his advisors who have been criminally inept in the past may suggest that he tries instead a softer version of authoritarianism, what is often called rule by law rather than rule of law. According to Javier Corrales' essays Autocratic Legalism in Venezuela, this softer authoritarianism has three elements: the use, abuse, and non-use of the law in service of the presidency. Given his legislative majorities, Kenyatta would find this appealing and cost-effective. He has already tried it with some success in the recent amendments to the election laws. In some ways, Kenyatta will be genetically familiar with this instrumental use of the law. His father was a master of it. If the constitution did not give him power to do something then that he desired to do, he simply ignored or amended it. In 1975, for example, he famously amended the constitution and then backdated the amendment, also that he could pardon his friend Paul Gay, who had been barred from a by-election because he had committed an election offense, a crime for which the president could not pardon Gay, with the constitution as it then stood. The problem with autocratic legalism is that it depends on a quiescent judiciary. Right now, there's a coterie of intrepid judges whom Kenyatta cannot bend to his will. These judges are backed by unforgiving, constitution that properly interpreted will nullify the laws Kenyatta may need to achieve his aims. Autocratic legalism then, and the soft authoritarianism that Kenyatta needs to govern a divided country over which he has lost political control, does not look like a feasible option. This brings Kenyatta to the place where he was before this election. He urgently needs to talk to Raila Odinga. Ill-advised procrastination and a flawed election have robbed him of two most precious assets, initiative and leverage. And sadly, Kenya seems set to lose again, as it did the last time a Kenyatta and an Odinga quarreled. That's the end of the article. Now, I know this, some of this might have been very heavy for you, but don't worry. In the next and final part of this series, I will break it down for you, so that we know exactly what to expect. And I'll also give my own analysis of what I think, that should be very interesting. So make sure you don't miss it. You know the usual drill. Look out for the link on your top left-hand corner. Click on it and you'll be there. See you there in a bit. This is Kshs Kumekucha.